Well, welcome to the Seven Figure CEO podcast. This is your host, Casey Graham, and I am here with my new friend, Yuri. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Casey?
Doing well. So where are you at today, Yuri?
I'm in my home studio in Toronto.
Very nice. Very nice. We're just talking before. I love Canada.
That's great.
It's awesome. Like we come up and I didn't realize how many lakes there are. Like,
yeah, it's like, I mean, Florida's pretty well, like Orlando area is known for a lot of lakes. Like that is all of Ontario, at least, in and around where I live. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And so many people have lake cottages.
That's big time. I mean, that's big time Canadian culture.
It is.
It's like hockey and cottages. That's,
That's it. So that's awesome. So, a little bit, we got connected online and team members reaching out to one another, and just tell everybody a little bit about who you are, just kind of the short version of who you are and what you do and how in the world you got here. I wish people could see us too, because we're so bald. Both of us.
I know. It's scary. Like doppelgangers.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I grew up wanting to play pro soccer. That was my goal from a very young age. So I dedicated my whole life up until 24 to doing that. And I was able to do that for 3 years in my early 20s. It was a great experience. And then I just got to the point where I was like, I think there's something bigger I want to do in this world. But before all that, I actually lost all of my hair to an autoimmune condition when I was 17 because I kind of ignored a lot of health symptoms that my body was going through. And that really propelled me into this whole field that I'm in now, which is really helping others improve their health, fitness, and well-being. And I started off as a personal trainer wanting to help individuals, in a one-on-one fashion. And then I very quickly, well, I shouldn't say quickly because it took me about 7 years to realize that working 14 hours a day is not the life that I wanted to live. And I knew that I wanted to have a bigger family as obviously I got married and stuff. And I just knew that I wanted to live my life on my terms. I was the worst employee ever. Like at the gym that I was working at, I would always wear I would never wear the standard uniform that my manager wanted me to wear. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. So I was always just like this rebellious type of entrepreneurial spirit, even from a young age. And that's one of the reasons that I stopped playing soccer too, is that because I realized I was simply an employee and I didn't have the freedom that I wanted. So long story short, came online, had no idea what I was doing for the first couple of years, and eventually cracked the code. And since that time, we've helped over 500,000 people around the world with their online nutrition workout programs. I've got three published books. One of them's a New York Times bestseller. And in the last 2 years, I've started to coach other health and fitness professionals to help them build their online presence so that collectively we can help 1 billion people on the planet by 2040. And I'm super passionate about entrepreneurship and business and marketing. That's what I've been doing every single day for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
And I love sharing this stuff. And it's just, I believe that marketing and entrepreneurship is really, it's the bridge to help people go from suffering to their ideal outcome. And there's no better way to do that than having your own business and kind of running the show.
That's awesome. So 1 billion people.
1 billion people. It's a very lofty goal. I have no idea how it's going to happen. I do know that one thing will unfold after another, and eventually we'll get there.
Sure. So why 1 billion? Why not 50 million? Why? What's 1 billion?
Sure. 1 billion, I think, again, I think when we're setting goals, a lot of times it's the arbitrary numbers, right? And I just said, instead of saying like, we want to impact 10 million people by 2018, and we're kind of on our way there. And I figured 1 billion, conceivably it's a very, I don't even know how to do that, but it's almost like the farther you stretch yourself, the more you're pulled in that direction to make things happen. So whether we hit 900 million or 1.2 billion, it's all good for me. We just want to really transform people's lives. And I think as health and fitness professionals, it's a really honorable position to be able to really impact people at a deep level. And there's a lot of people suffering around the world.
Yeah. So let me ask one more question about that. A big question I get from entrepreneurs and a lot of people listening to this Seven Figure CEO podcast, they go, how do you know what to set a goal at? Like, and I know you said 1 billion, I might as well think big, right? So even in your current business, in the sense of like, whether it's financial forecasting or an amount of members that you want to do, what drives that for you?
Yeah, for me, it has to be something that, first and foremost, actually means something like emotionally. Like, so for me, why am I doing what I do? It's because I really believe that, I'm on this planet to help people end suffering. Is for me, yes, 1 billion is kind of an arbitrary number. I could have said
Sure.
450 million. I just wanted to set that kind of very lofty expectation. But I think what's important in my business is that we use very, very achievable small progress goals, right? So we might hit an objective of a specific outcome as our target, but then we break that down into performance goals, performance objectives, and then very specific processes and tasks. So that's what we're focusing. We're not focusing on the outcome. We're focusing on what is it that we do on a day-to-day basis, that if that gets done, we know that we'll be on the right track for the ultimate outcome.
That's very good. So what does your team look like? How are you structured now? And go back a little bit to when you said, hey, first couple of years, we didn't know what we were doing. What did your team look like then?
Well, when I say we, I meant I, right?
Okay.
I'm like stubborn, or I was the most stubborn, rugged individualist, a very slow learner, which meant that I could get some coaching and actually speed the learning curve. But I was like, I'm going to try to figure this out. And it took me a while to really finally get it, which doing things on your own is not the best way to do it. So anyways, now, back in the day, I was working my butt off, grinding it away and just burning myself out. Now we have a team of about 12 people. So I have my brother who's been with me probably since the end of year one. And we've been online now for 11 years. So he runs operations. So he's the guy who does all the day-to-day stuff. I really have very little involvement in what's happening on a day-to-day basis. My goal is strategy, vision, selling really. Teaching for me is selling.
Sure.
So I do plenty of that. But he runs operations. We have a team, a content team that kind of ramps up our content development and distribution. We've got our director of marketing who handles our funnels and customer acquisition. And then we've got some small independent contractors who do things like creation, video, stuff like that. So it's a pretty nimble team. And I think as we grow, really the only big kind of additions that we'd have to add on to what we do is mostly customer service and support.
That's great. So you said rugged individualism, which makes me think of, are you a strategic coach guy, Dan Sullivan?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So I knew, I'd heard that phrase before from him. What changed to take you from rugged individualist to team builder CEO?
Well, I think it's like you just hit the wall so many times that eventually you're like, okay, my head's starting to hurt now.
But how did you know to do it? Was it pain? Or just pain and learning slowly, or did you get a coach? What happened? Yeah,
so I was sitting down at Starbucks at the end of 2009, kind of recapping the previous year. And I was like, you know what? I'm really not moving I'm not doing anything to where I want to get to. I mean, everything I've done is really, it's not moving the needle. And so I made the commitment to the following year, find a coach or a mastermind and actually start going to live events to meet people and connect with people in my industry.
Right.
So I did that the next year. In the first 3-4 months of the year, I got into the right coaching program, basically met with the big influencers in our space. And just that alone really catapulted my business for that year and then moving forward.
So getting out and meeting with key influencers
was big. Yeah.
Why? What happened in those meetings? We have 2 rules on the podcast. Number 1 is that you have to be over 7 figures. And number 2 is that there's no theory.
No, for sure.
So I want to know in those meetings, number 1, how did you set those meetings? Mm-hmm. Number 2, when you got to the meeting, what was it about? Where did you meet online? Did you meet in person? What did that look like? And then number 3, what changed in you after those meetings?
Sure. So the meetings were conferences, right? So they're marketing conferences, for online professionals and stuff like that. And I knew that people in my space were going to be there. And these were guys who were doing 7-8 figures from an ebook, one ebook. And I'm like, wow, I need to connect with these individuals.
I want to be on that one.
Exactly. Right. So I knew who they were, and I had a very vague relationship with them by email, but I said, you know what, let's meet in person, buy them a drink at the bar, have dinner with them, get to know them, in person. And that was my game plan.
But what did you do? What did you do in the meeting?
What did I do in the meeting? So the meeting was essentially various different speakers talking about, what's working for them online and whatnot. But it was really what's happening outside the meetings, in the hallways, between sessions, where you're hey, Mike, great to meet you. Finally, I'm Yuri. We shoot the shit and do our thing. Add value to that individual's life in some way, shape, or form. and just be cool, right? Some people you jive with more than others. And as a
Sure.
result of that, within the online space, a lot of people do joint ventures back and forth, right? So they'll promote one thing for
Sure.
myself, I'll promote one of theirs. And that's kind of how it started. So we started doing business together. And,
Gotcha.
since that time, a lot of us have become very, very close friends. And that's kind of the nature of how that all started. So it was really, toe to toe conversations and building those relationships.
That's amazing. So if you're listening to this and you're looking for something practical to take away, if you're stuck, one of the best things for you to do when you're stuck is just get out and meet new people.
Mm-hmm.
Great takeaway. And it's so true. And it doesn't have to be people in your industry, just different leaders, different thoughts, different angles, different things. And, it energizes me to do that as well. Even doing these, people say, because this is the purest thing I do. There's no selling. We don't do selling here. It's literally just there's no opt-ins. There's nothing. It's just totally value. People say, why do you do it? Well, I get to meet people like you.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great excuse. And to be honest, what I've realized is that as the CEO of your business, people complain or they talk about how CEOs, they get all this money and they spend their time playing golf. And I'm like, that's exactly what they should be doing. Because if they're behind the computer typing away and coding and stuff, that's not their best use of their time.
Yeah.
That's not their unique ability. Their unique ability is building relationships and figuring out ways to do business with one another. And if that's on the golf course, then that's great. So,
that's great. How long did it take you guys to break the 7-figure mark?
It took us, I would say the first 3 years online were a real learning curve. So I would
what did that mean? Like 100,000 in sales?
No. So I was still working as a trainer. So I had my in-person clients.
Okay.
I'm going to cut half you guys out so I have more time online. My first year online, I made $6,000, which was
that's the first year you made 6,000.
Yeah. So that's not going to feed anybody. So obviously I couldn't fully go online. So the second year I said, okay, I'm going to go a little bit further into this. And I think the second year we made about $25,000.
Okay.
And then I said, I just needed to invest all my time in that. So I cut all my personal training clients because I was kind of sick of doing that at the time anyways. Third year online, we did just under 6 figures. And then the following year, when I started getting into the coaching and so forth, we went to about 250. And then from then on, it was about the end of 2011 when we first broke the 7-figure mark. So about, 4.5 years of business.
Okay. So another takeaway.
Yeah.
I have people that start businesses and they're in 4 months and they're like, it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to that person?
Okay, well, here's the thing that I realized. I'm like, just because it took me 4 to 5 years to break the 7-figure mark doesn't mean that it has to take that long. It can take longer in some cases. It can take a lot shorter in some cases. Different business models work for different businesses at different speeds.
Yes.
But the thing you have to realize is you're building an empire. You're building something substantial. And it's not going to happen overnight. If it does, all the power to you.
And it's going to go away overnight, probably.
Yeah, you have to really build a solid foundation. And sometimes that solid foundation comes with a lot of mistakes and learning from those mistakes. So I like to tell people I just simply failed more often than anybody else or other people. And I kept going and learned and kept, failing and learning from that. And that was a very important foundation because it's provided a lot of wisdom that I've been able to share with a lot of others as well.
That's good. So we're about midway point. Tell everybody just real quick. You talked about having a resource that people could jump into. Mm-hmm. Even if you're interested in the health, we have a lot of people in the health industry that listen to this, but people that aren't even. What is that resource? And then we'll keep diving into the questions about making good decisions and knowing where to spend your time and not spend your time.
Yeah, for sure. So this is something I developed called the idea filter. It's a 2-page filtering mechanism that will help you sort between ideas, business opportunities, products that you're thinking about. Because as entrepreneurs and CEOs, one of our gifts is all these different ideas that we have. But the problem is that if we chase every single one of them, it's a waste of time, money, and resources. So this idea filter is something I developed a little while ago that I use in my business and that my clients use to help them get super clear, or at least with a great degree of confidence, what is worth pursuing and what is not. And so that after spending 10 to 15 minutes going through this tool, you have a lot more clarity as to, okay, yes, this is worthwhile pursuing, or I probably should move on to something else.
That's good. So where do they get it?
So they can grab it right on the homepage of our website at healthpreneurgroup.com.
Healthpreneurgroup.com. That's great. That's great. So go check that out. We'll put it in the show notes as well. So if you're consulting a business right now, a
Mhm.
lot of questions we get is around hiring. You smirked.
Yeah, no, hiring's huge.
Yeah. So what would you say for a business that wants to grow and scale to 7 to 8 figures? What have you learned around hiring, and what are some of the mistakes maybe that you've made along the way as it relates to hiring as well?
We've been very fortunate that we've had little turnover in our business, and not that turnover is a bad thing, because sometimes it's okay to get rid of people as you grow.
Sure.
But I think for us, what's really worked well is we have hired people not because we pay the most, but because the people we hire are they believe so much in our vision and what we're trying to accomplish that they want to be part of this culture and what we're
Right.
moving towards. Even though we're a virtual team and we're not Apple, but we're a small, nimble team that is doing great things in the world and impacting millions of people, and they want to be part of that because we're giving people the freedom to work pretty much on their own schedule. And we're basically saying, listen, as long as you're producing these results, I don't care if you're working 3 hours a day or 5 hours a day, you're getting paid, whatever it is you're getting.
Is that true?
True.
Is that a true statement? I hear people say it all the time. If I don't care if you're working 3 hours or 8 hours, if you just get the results. So is that true?
Yeah. Well, for us, like for instance, customer service, there's obviously timeframes they have to be working, right?
Okay.
But for somebody else who's in let's say a project type of
digital marketing or whatever.
I'm like, listen, if you can produce a cost per acquisition or this, specific ROI,
right.
I don't care if it takes you an hour. I would actually rather it take you an hour than 10 hours because you're a little bit more effective at what you do.
Sure.
So we're really adamant about hiring great people, but not necessarily going after, there's two different ways of hiring the way I see it. You can hire people who are seasoned veterans who've done this before, and you're going to pay a premium for that. But they'll also probably give you accelerated results.
Sure.
You can hire people who are hungry, they're coachable, they're great learners, and they're willing to grow with you. And that's kind of the way that we've taken with the people that we brought on, is most of our team members are younger than 35,
okay,
but super excited and passionate about what we're doing. They're committed to growing and learning and mastering their specific craft. And that's been pretty cool to see people develop with you as you go through that. So as a result of that, it's enabled me to kind of step away from the stuff that I don't want to do.
Right.
And one of the biggest lessons that I ever got from a hiring perspective or even delegating perspective was from Vern Harnish.
Oh yeah.
When he said the organization's weakness is the CEO's strength. And for me, my strength is marketing. So giving up the marketing side of my business was challenging. But I took a 2-month sabbatical this past summer, and I was forced to do that. And it was like the best thing that ever happened because it empowered our director of marketing to really kind of take the reins.
And do
and it was for me, I realized I'm like, I don't need to be doing this stuff. Like he can do it just as well, if not better. So that was a big epiphany for me as well.
Can you say that again, the statement that the business's weakness?
So the business's biggest weakness is the CEO's biggest strength.
Wow, what a takeaway.
Yeah,
wow.
That's huge.
Yeah, one of the things we talk about when I'm coaching, I do something called breakthrough days, just 2 times a month to have CEOs and leaders come down after I sold my company about 7 months ago. And so I just have CEOs and leaders come down. And I say there's 3 phases to business. There's making a living, there's lifestyle, and then there's a lasting business. Mm-hmm. And I say in a lifestyle business, the leader hires to their weaknesses. In a lasting business, the leader hires to everything.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've made the transition to hire to everything. Is that right?
Pretty much. I'm in a position. So with my health business, the one that we've built, online for 10 years, I spend 10% of my time in that business, even though the business is me, my brand, everything is kind of revolved around ideas and intellectual property. But I spend 10% of my time in that business. Most of my time is actually spent on the healthpreneur side.
Right.
I'm actually helping other entrepreneurs now because I have the time freedom to teach what we're actually doing in the real world. I don't teach theory. I teach this is stuff we actually do in our business. Right. And what's worked. I'm basically kind of pulling back the curtains and showing you guys that as well. So yeah, hiring pretty much not only to my weaknesses, but to pretty much any areas that need to be filled has been very important for us in the last few years.
One more question about these people. Where did you find them? Like Where do you find young, hungry, scrappy people that want to work with you and that kind of thing? Like specifically, like did you put ads out? Did you send out to your email database and say, hey, we're looking? Like what did y'all specifically do to get hand raised?
So we do three things. Actually before that, like the most important thing you can do before you hire anybody is get super like 100% focused and clear as to who it is and what they're going to be doing. Because if you're not clear on that, you're going to hire the wrong people. They're not going to be accountable to the right things. It gets messy. So once I got clear on that, based on the initial kind of projects that we need to get done, I actually went out to Elance, which is now Upwork.
Okay.
Hired, after going through obviously different candidates, hired one person who ended up being a really good fit. For customer service, we actually emailed our own customer database and said, looking for somebody who's used our products, who's kind of like, had our Kool-Aid, who loves our stuff, and who's also good at X, Y, and Z. And we found some amazing customer service people from our own database. And the third is that I simply just asked my team. So for instance, we had a graphic designer who was on our team for a while. And I said, just put it out in one of our team meetings. I'm like, we're looking for somebody who can do some of our marketing. And he's like, oh yeah, one of my best friends would be great. I'm like, you've been working with us for like 4 years and I've never known about this person. Again, like I had it up and clear and put it out there. I guess I would never have known.
Yeah. But as leaders, it's our job to teach the employees to think this way, because employees don't naturally think this way, right? They're not waking up every day going, who can we hire? Yeah. Great ones will, but that's so true. So you said meetings. What do y'all do for meetings? What does meetings look like in your company?
Yeah, so I've actually stepped away from the meetings a little bit for myself because I actually don't find they're a very good use of my time. So my brother manages most of our meetings, but basically we have a team meeting on Monday afternoons. Okay. We used to do daily huddles, but then it was just, we didn't find that it was necessary for the size of our team in terms of what we were doing. So we moved our daily huddles.
What do you do in your team meeting?
So team meeting, we basically recap a success from the previous week. So everyone will go around the table. And when I say table, I mean like a Zoom kind of hangout. So we'll do a success from the previous week. We'll do a recap as to what are the important metrics that we're looking at and how are we doing in relation to those. Right. We'll highlight a success, like a client success. So this will be usually like a customer service type of thing where they'll bring up something that's come through their desk. And then we'll look at, okay, here's what's coming up over the next week. And then how are we doing moving towards our bigger rocks for the quarter? Yeah. And so that takes about, 30 minutes, and that's what we do every Monday.
That's good. What would you suggest to entrepreneurs who are not having consistent meetings right now?
To be honest, I'm not too sure. I mean, I was in strategic coach with Dan Sullivan for a number of years, and he's not a fan of meetings at all. And then there are other people like Vern Harnish who, it's like meeting. I think it really depends on the individual. I don't find that, like when I look at my time throughout the week and I'm looking at, wow, I've got like 4 hours of meetings. For me, I don't know if that's the best use of my time, because as long as your employees are the right employees and they're self-directed and self-motivated and they can do stuff without you having to hold their hand every second. Yep. I like to manage by number. So if I can have like a 30-minute meeting with my key people once a week and manage by numbers, and just fix any issues, that's the way I'd like to do it, instead of like, all right, let's have our daily meeting once again. And I'm like, okay, there goes the morning. So I'd rather people actually do the work and have, a structured, path that they're following. Sure. We can correct course, less often.
That's good. That's good. And it's different for different people. For like when I was CEO, our weekly meeting was inspiration and information. And so the people that were out of town, we put, obviously on a Zoom call kind of thing and put the cameras on. And then the people that were in the corporate office, they would be live or whatever. But it was more about inspiration. And what I tell people is people don't want to be in meetings and hear a bunch of information.
Mm-hmm. I know.
So 80% inspiration, 20% information, that kind of thing. But if you have self-motivated people like you just talked about, you don't have to motivate people. Like, you just got to point them in the right direction and be clear. Do you agree or disagree?
I'm a huge fan, and part of my modus operandi is like teach people how to fish. Yeah. Give them the fish. And so when I'm working with like people on our team, I want people who are self-motivated, and not everyone is, right? But if you can find people who are intrapreneurs, who have like projects you're working on, and they go do it, you don't need to micromanage them, which is beautiful. You can check in to see how everything is going, and that's it. As long as they're moving in the direction of their KPIs and what what you're doing, that's all that matters. And most people love that. Like people don't like being micromanaged. They don't like being told what to do, what not to do. Give them most people don't want to take the risk of being an entrepreneur. However, they want the freedom of the entrepreneur. So if you can give that to them, again, not everyone's like this, but
that's good.
Project managers, for instance, in your business, let them run the show within their segments and just let them do their thing.
That's good. So let's stop. Key phrase you said is KPI, key performance indicator. Mm-hmm. A lot of people listening to this, here's a big issue of people going from 6 to 7 figures. Hey, we have 4 or 5 people on our team, but there's like 29 KPIs. So how do you manage KPIs in a growing company where there's more stats and data and things to manage than you actually can have managed on your team? And early on, you got people doing a lot of things. They're generalists. They're not just specialists. Or how did you manage through that? How do you set KPIs? What does that look like?
It took me a long time because we could KPI 1,000 different things.
Everything.
Right. And cool. But then and we actually did this a little while ago where we had a custom dashboard built for all of our content.
We did too.
And I was I'm like, this is gonna be amazing. I can know exactly what every single piece of content is lifetime value, whatever. And then it was just blow it up. I don't even want to see it anymore. It's so overwhelming. I'm like, I don't even want to look at it. So
you have to almost hire a full-time person to keep up with the stats.
I don't know. I mean, unless you're a statistician or a rocket scientist, I think most of us, we just want to see in one page on a graph, what are the couple numbers that are leading indicators that basically mean that if they're moving in the right direction, our business will follow.
Okay. What is that for y'all?
So for me, it took me a while to really figure this out. So I'm like, okay, well, if this happens, then this should happen. So for us, the most important things for us are obviously revenue, but that's more of a trailing indicator. So that's kind of if everything else works out, then revenue works out. So for us, it's list growth. So new daily opt-ins or leads.
Okay.
So we look at that. We look at unique visits to our blog from search. So not coming from Facebook, but actually people typing into search. How many people are coming from that?
Yep.
We look at what is the average time on site on our website, because if people stay longer, we know that they're going to engage with our stuff. We look at what is the ROI on our ad spend. Mm-hmm. So if we're spending $100, are we making 50 or are we making 1,000? And we track that pretty religiously. Those are really the big ones. And we have a couple membership programs. So we'll look at what is the current
retention,
churn rates, membership number. Because again,
what about for customer service?
Customer service, we use a platform called Groove HQ.
Okay.
Really, really cool. And it's basically, I've actually never been in there, which is amazing. But our team that kind of oversees customer service, there are specific customer feedback metrics in there.
Right.
That will give us an indication as to this person's performance is at a certain percentage. And we basically say that we want us to be at, let's say it's 90% satisfaction, right?
Sure.
If that specific customer service rep is around there, then we know things are on the ball. And the other thing we look at is more product specific is we'll send out to our customers a net promoter score type of survey. And we'll just ask them based on your experience of this, would you recommend it to a friend? And that's really helpful for us as well, because we can also use that because we send it to them in a survey. We can actually send the data. We can use the data in our marketing. We can say, listen,
that's good.
These customers, this is the data that's showing that, however many would recommend the program. So those are, so those 4 metrics are really the big ones that we look at.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like to me, you're very disciplined to the things that matter.
It took me a long time to come to this though, but yeah, because the thing is when you measure everything, nothing matters, right? So it's look at, if you take your big outcome, right? Let's just say it's revenue, and you just chunk it down, break it down. What is, in order for revenue to grow, what is the first thing that has to happen? And then build it up from there to 3, 4, maybe 5 metrics. And if you're going above and beyond that, then it's just, spend some time to really think about what's going to really make a big difference in your business.
That's very good. Very good. Okay. Couple more questions, two more. What like financial reports do you look at? Like, how does money work in your business?
So I look at cash flow reports. So we
How
work in
often?
pretty much every day. So I'll look at, basically we have, I can get real-time reporting as to daily sales. So I can look at that in a second.
Where do you look at that?
So we have a couple different shopping carts. So we'll look at,
Okay.
the majority of our sales come in one shop in one of them. So I'll just look at one of those and I'm like, okay, if this
So you're looking in the shopping cart, not a financial report.
yeah, mostly, I mean, I'll look at financial reports, like the accounting version
Sure.
on like a monthly basis. And then I'll look at, our team also compiles a cash flow report, basically because we have to look, because we do have some consumables in our business and tracking cash flow with inventory becomes important for that.
Gotcha.
So we're looking at if it takes 2 weeks for money that was for a product that was sold today for that money to come to the bank, how does that impact our cash flow over the next month or so?
Yes.
So I'll keep an eye on that as well.
Got it. Got it. So what about expenses?
Yeah, I mean, I probably should look at expenses a bit more.
That's what your brother does?
That's what my brother does. I'm just like, let's just keep creating and do stuff. But I do look at stuff from like, do we even use this service that we're paying $30 a month for? Like, do we really need that? Like stuff like that? I'll just be like,
yeah.
So I definitely will on a monthly basis look at our P&L.
Sure.
And I'll be like, because we have everything itemized, and I'm just like, do we even need this? So
Right.
we're paying whatever we're paying for it. So
I got it. So do you have any rules around money? Like no debt, or this is the net profit margin we want, or anything like that?
yeah, so our ideal net profit margin is 60% plus.
Net. And that's includes your pay or does not include your pay?
That would actually include our pay, because with our digital business, even with our service-based business, the margins are very good. And so we know that if we can be very smart with the way we market and the way we manage our team, we can achieve those numbers. And we're pretty close to that on a regular basis. So we look at margin, like as in trying to get to that number as
Sure.
a good ballpark for us. And then like in terms of rules,
what about debt?
Debts, we look at, I'm of the opinion that personally I like to pay everything with cash if possible.
Sure.
But in business, it's a bit different because having debt is actually, it can be a good thing because you can leverage debt to get more inventory, or, not all debt is bad, but I think you just have to be smart about it. Like you can't just do stupid stuff and be like, yeah, let's just expense $100,000 on product because we're going to sell it.
Sure.
Okay, so I think you have to look at your numbers. You have to be able to forecast and project relatively accurately. And again, not 100%, but just be realistic about stuff. And cash is king. Like you have to have cash in the bank. I mean, if you don't.
Do you have a rule for how much cash y'all like to keep in the bank? Is it a dollar amount, or is it a percentage, or this many months, or what?
Yeah. So we basically look at whatever revenue we make, 10% of that sits in the bank.
Period. Every month.
Period. And that's used for like bonus payouts, or that'll be used for like worst case scenario, the internet blows up and we need more money. And we do our best to make sure that it's at 10% all the time. Yeah,
we call it an obstacle and opportunity fund.
Yeah.
So it's similar. We do 3 months of operating expenses is like bare minimum. So like we try to keep that cash. That's good. All right, last question. Like, how are you still learning? Who are you learning from? What are you learning? What's going on in your brain? Give us some up-to-date stuff that's happening now.
So I learn the most from my kids. I've got 3 little boys, and it's like a personal development seminar every single day with them. So that's like my first teacher. The second, like I'm always learning from other businesses. Like when I get flyers in the mail, or when I get like in everyday interactions, I'm like, wow, that was an amazing experience, or they missed the ball big time.
Right.
I love those kind of like individual on a daily basis type of experiences. And then I'm always learning from like a lot of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, he's definitely been a really impactful mentor for me. And there's other people in this space, like, specific marketers that I learned from who I try. The funny thing is, like, initially I try to learn from everybody.
Right.
And then I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to not listen to anybody except for maybe one or two people. And to be honest, it really is alleviating in terms of like stress and overwhelm. Unsubscribe from all the newsletters, all the emails. I'm like, I just jive with this person. I'm going to follow a little bit what they're talking about and I craft my own methodology. And
give me an example. Who's one? Who's somebody that you would say, I cut everybody and this is one of the people that was left standing?
I don't know if you know who Frank Kern is.
Oh yeah, totally.
So Frank Kern, I don't know what it is his Southern accent or his just demeanor. He's just fun to listen to, right?
Yeah.
And he's a really, really smart guy. Dean Jackson, who's a good friend of mine, is another, probably the smartest person when it comes to marketing that I know. So, when I'm able to kind of learn from him and hang out with him, that's, priceless. And I feel that I have a really good foundation. Like, I think when you understand humans, and actually, I should say this is probably the most important thing. As a CEO, I think the problem is that as your business grows, you tend to kind of separate yourself more from like the front line. I think that's a huge mistake. So to be honest, I actually spend a lot of time learning from my audience. So I'm in our customer Facebook groups. I'm interacting with our customers, asking them what their problems are, what they like about this, what they don't like about this,
Yeah.
That's for me, probably the best use of my time, because that's market research. You're dealing with your customers.
Yeah.
And they actually feel like you care about them, which I do. And that's really important. So I learn the most from our audience, definitely.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Cool. Well, man, this has been so helpful and so good. Thank you so much for being here. And
Absolutely.
Tell everybody again exactly where to go to follow you, follow your company. And if they're jumping in, and we've got a ton of health related people that do stuff here, what do they need to do?
Yeah. So if you want to, again, just follow our Healthpreneur tribe or be part of it, it's at healthpreneurgroup.com. We're basically showing you how to turn your expertise into a thriving online business that creates more impact, income, and freedom. And if you actually want to see what we're doing, like in our health business, you can go to my blog at yurielkaim.com. Mm-hmm. And that will give you like daily content, all the stuff we're doing. And that'll give you a really good idea of the stuff that we're putting out into the consumer space. So it's a lot of fun, and if I can serve you guys, join us.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Yuri, for being here, and thank you guys for listening to the 7 Figure CEO podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.